And welcome to Insights. I'm Paul Arthur. Looking forward to hearing from you today as we talk about personalities. Should be a lot of fun. I actually enjoy it. Let me ask you, does your personality clash with other personalities? At work, for example, right? Or at home? I think the answer by default would be yeah. For all of us, I think without exception, we have personalities that do tend to clash with different personalities, or maybe sometimes with similar personalities as well, you know. So, question is, why can't people be more like me, right? World would be a much better place, I think. Maybe you don't agree, though. On the other hand, sometimes we don't even like our own personality. Maybe we get tired of ourselves. You've met people like that, right? So, can you change your personality? Have you ever tried changing your personality? It's hard to do, isn't it? I think we're born with a certain style of personality for sure. But we're going to talk about how to better get along with people we tend not to get along with, whether it's at work or at home and so forth. I mean, there's got to be a way to smooth over those differences. Why are those differences there? Why do we continually kind of bash heads and so forth? And I'd love to hear your stories of those clashes and maybe what's worked for you to actually smooth things out. So a little later in the program, you can give us a call or you can email us right now with any questions you have. Insight@miraclechannel.ca. We're joined today by Ken Keis. He's an expert in training people in organizations, for that matter as well, in how to reach their full potential, and specifically dealing with these different personality styles that we're talking about here. All right, he's the author of a book called, I love the title, "Why Aren't You More Like Me?" You know, I mean, yeah, why aren't you more like me? Look at the fish in there. One's totally different. All right, you can get that online, whyaren'tyoumorelikeme.com. So whyaren'tyoumorelikeme.com is the website, and you can check out that book there. Might be very helpful to you. Good to have you with us, Ken.
Well, it's great to be here, Paul.
You bet. And you're again from the Vancouver area, Abbotsford?
Vancouver, born and raised in that area.
All right. Oh, that's beautiful country. God's country for sure. So, I mean, you speak on this stuff all over the world. You've done this for a long time. What, more than 20 years?
Yeah, 23, going on to 24 years.
Okay, excellent. What would you say your goal would be with this book? What are you hoping to accomplish?
Well, I think one of the things we want to do, and I love your intro, is that part of understanding others is first understanding ourselves. What is it that we bring to the table? What are our preferences? What are our biases? What are our filters? So when we talk about getting along with other people, what we need to do is understand what is it that are our preferences, and then how do those preferences affect our judgments towards others? So when we say, why aren't you more like me? Because a lot of times our conflict is because there's an unmet expectation. Well, that expectation is because I thought you should do it this way.
It's a false expectation, but then probably.
Well, certainly, because it was on what I see in what's important to me. So when we think about arguments or disagreements or work conflict, and I don't know if anybody's parents out there, I have 2 kids, are your kids the same, and do we want to parent them the same way? No, there are uniquenesses. So first of all, I need to honor myself, not from a self-centered point of view, but from a way to be self-honoring so that I understand what my strengths are. We don't really believe in developing your weaknesses from a style point of view. We want to play to our strengths. We were designed and created for a reason, for a purpose. And we were talking about that off camera, Paul, that sometimes people want to change their personality. Why would you want to do that? You were created perfectly. However, we need to be in charge of our personal style, not the other way around. And our style does not give us an excuse for our behavior. I'm just that way, forget it. I'm not going to change. And so we've all had those situations. I've been married now for 20 years, and there's been moments. And even though you author a book, now there's a higher level of accountability, so you can still have these conflict points that come in. So each of us have it. So I need to understand who I am, so then if I'm going to adjust to somebody else, then I also need to understand who they are, and then what are the steps I need to take so I can build credibility and relationship with you.
Yeah, your matter of fact, the first chapter talks about that self-awareness thing, right? Who am I? How has God made me? And would you say again that maybe most people are not aware, that self-aware? I mean, there's a certain degree, of course, we are, but to be really fully aware of who we are and our personality style. There's
a recent study that came out that said the majority, 70%, do not know what their personal style is. And that the study went on to say this, is that only 2% of the population will realize their potential without this knowledge.
Wow.
2%. So 1 out of 50. So if you want to back the odds or push against the odds, then don't know about this information. But because personal style, we are born with it, and it's a natural predisposition, I can't balk it. So it's more important than age, more important than education, more important than my background or economic condition, because wherever I go, I am.
Yes.
And so I take that personal style and preferences in the workplace, with my friends, with my kids, with relationships, my career choices. All the dynamics of my life are affected. So once I know who I am, that self-awareness, then I could be way more intentional with my choices. The ability to say no is equally important as the ability to say yes. And sometimes we want to become people who are, so they say, well, I'd like to be like Paul. I mean, he's outgoing and that he's the center of attention, those kinds of things, right? When in fact, you were designed to do something different. And so we believe that every single style needs to be honored and every single style is okay, but every style pattern or combination has related strengths and challenges.
Right.
So just because you're Paul doesn't mean that Paul doesn't have issues, or Ken doesn't have issues, or yourself out there.
Exactly. Ask my wife and kids. Paul's got his issues, you know. Well, I appreciate your vulnerability as well in the book. Actually, you talk about that when you're in college. You know, much to your surprise, you say, you know, this girl pointed out, boy, you know, you're not such a jerk that I thought you were. And you're going like, what? You know.
Well, thanks for bringing that up, Paul,
yeah, no,
on air. Right?
My pleasure.
Well, one of the things, I wasn't really conscious in college that I was over-trying. I was trying to get people to like me by engaging them. But what came out of that, because we teach a holistic model where it's not just personal style, there are other things that contribute. Yep. My self-worth was fairly low at that time. And so I was trying to get people to validate me by engaging. And so I was actually, my behavior was doing the opposite with them. So sometimes we're trying to achieve an outcome in our relationships or a result, but what we're doing is actually not, it's contrary to what we want. And people aren't conscious or awake of that. So the power of knowing and getting into the book and understanding those differences equips me to be a better leader, equips me to be better in my job, to look at the career choices. Because all of us have an assignment, all of us have a purpose, and can I look at that? And yes, college was a perfect example where I just missed it completely and said, you know, once I got to know you, Ken, you don't have to try that hard. It's okay.
You know, and I can relate to that because I was very similar to that. And again, trying to validate myself, that sort of getting people to like me. And I used to joke around. I used to be a morning, DJ and so forth. And somebody actually did speak into my life at one point as well. And said, Paul, you don't have to tell jokes all the time. And it's actually working against you. And I'm thankful to this day that, somebody actually was brave enough to speak into my life. And I think we all need some of that. All right. So Ken Keis, our guest today, author of Why Aren't You More Like Me? I think it's a fun topic, but actually has a serious side to it as well. It's an excellent tool to make us a better human being and to make this world a better place, all right, functionality-wise, So I'd love to hear from you. We're going to open up the lines in a little bit here. We did take the camera off to the streets here to just ask people to share some of their thoughts on, pet peeves when working with others.
I guess just when people are unwilling to actually work together and people have their own agenda that they want to push.
Sense of responsibility. I mean, if you mess up, just own up to it.
Having to babysit someone.
Not being able to listen to everyone's opinion, always having to stick to your own and not listen to anyone else's. That's a very big pet peeve of mine.
What do you do that may bother others?
I'm probably one of those people. I can be very stubborn sometimes. I have my own vision for how I want things to go, and sometimes I need to remind myself that other people may have equally good ideas or even better ideas.
Kind of a perfectionist when it comes to work, so something that doesn't necessarily be done so perfect will just drive me crazy, and as long as it's done, it's kind of like sometimes I just need to not say anything and walk away.
I think I micromanage a little bit too much, and I should just leave it to others sometimes.
Okay, pet peeves. We've all got them, I hate when people tell me what to do or whatever it is, right? That person always does this at work, and it just bugs me. And eventually, it comes to a head, and you get mad at the person, right? There's conflict. It does happen, doesn't it? All right. Why Aren't You More Like Me is the name of the book by Ken Keis, and that's the website as well, whyaren'tyoumorelikeme.com. You can get your copy there. Ken, any quick thoughts on pet peeves?
Well, one of the things that happens is that you talked about how do we get along better with other individuals. And one of the things that, now that I know myself, one of the hardest things for us to do is to suspend our only expectations of other people. So pet peeves come from the fact that I'm filtering. I want to see you do how I want to do it. You heard the gentleman say, oh, somebody who is just being too analytical, too perfectionistic. Well, you know, we need those people. I love that there's perfectionistic airplane mechanics.
Yes.
Versus, you know, if you're an expressive personal style and we say, oh, that's good enough, take off, it'll fine. Well, somebody else will fix it at the other end. So we all need each other. But one of the hardest things for us to do is to actually suspend my needs in deference to yours. It's the opposite of being self-centered. And so actually Christ talks about that for us, is that I'm not trying to change who you are, and our style is what it is. But at the same time, can I be in charge of my style so that I get out of the way? There's some research done in the US by Dr. John Gottman, and he said, you know what? If you get it, and then he does he created the Love Lab for marriages. So this is kind of interesting. And what he proved is that when I get hooked, so we talk about pet peeves that can actually go further. And my heartbeat goes over 100 beats per minute, non-athletic, I am no longer rational. So I don't know if anybody's watching this show where you've kind of lost it, you got hooked, your pet peeve went further, and then you said something that you regretted later, because once I go over 100 beats, then I'm no longer going to be appropriate in my thinking.
Blood pressure goes up, literally. Your heart.
Exactly.
Yeah, it does happen. Absolutely, it does. Should wear one of these monitors at work, you know, and just a little alarm goes off. All right, shut up now, Paul. Well, it's an idea.
It's an idea.
It could work for me, you know. Okay, let's actually unpack the different styles. Again, I think there's 4 of them, right? So, I mean, I guess maybe we're used to the old, labeling, phlegmatic and so forth, and melancholy, whatever. Very similar, I guess, but yet a bit different. So,
well, our model came out of Dr. Anderson put it together 30 years ago because we wanted to be inclusive. So there are 4 different dimensions, and most people are aware of these styles. However, the population is mostly a combination of them.
Right.
90% of, so there's 4 different dimensions in the purest sense that exist. So behavioral action, that's the driven individual. That's the part of your personality doesn't like to be told what to do.
Right.
You have a value that's independent. So we also link values into our style model as well, so that we want to live our values out, so that that's important. I can feel fulfilled. They're also very goal-oriented, very directive. They're task-driven, but they're also nonverbal. So in our model, even though they might be seen as being extroverted, because introverted and extroverted in our model has nothing to do with people, it has to do with how you engage the environment. So behavioral action individuals want to tell the environment what to do. They're nonverbal, so they're not going to say a lot, but they could be seen as introverted in other models, but in fact, they're in charge totally. They just don't want to talk to you.
So they make good bosses, sort of thing? Or?
They can, but that's where we talked about, I want to change my personality to be better. They can, they're directive, if they can learn to be more sensitive, if they can learn to be paying attention to other people's feelings, because usually that's not their orientation. So remember, no style is better than another, just simply different. So in the behavioral action, that's their gift, is drive and goals and vision and intensity. But if I only bring that and somebody's opposite to me, that's when I can intimidate them or overpower them. They could be seen as rude or direct or those kinds of things.
It's a Donald Trump kind of a model.
Absolutely,
right?
And he's a perfect example of what a high behavioral action profile would be. Then we have the affective expressive, the Pauls of the world also have this, and that's the stereotypical definition of an extrovert. They're people-centered, but they're people-centered in a different way. They want to influence them. They want to give information to them. They want to be able to tell the environment what to do, but that includes your choices.
So the verbal, typical talk show host.
A talk show host, typically, they're also people-oriented, so they get their energy from being around people. If these individuals are put in a back room from a work point of view and not engaging others, then they're going to die. They're going to wither. So they need people to actually be energized and to play that gift, whatever contact or context that applies in.
Okay.
And then the other 2 is interpersonal harmony. That's the person who has the gift of compassion, the ability to focus on others. They're introverted. In our model, what introversion means is that they are more sensitive to environmental stimulus, but they actually have a bigger radar dish. So they can actually walk in a room and know if there's conflict, even though nobody said anything, because so they have this sensitivity. But also, if they get in conflict, their willingness to deal with it decreases. So they'll avoid it, they'll stuff it. And that can be a real challenge for them because they can actually get ill. They can physically get ill if there's conflict around them. So if you have that as part of it, then I need to learn assertiveness to be able to kind of get out of the box and the ability to say no, because sometimes they'll defer to everybody else's needs instead of their own. And then finally, the cognitive analysis, which is the person who's detailed-oriented, but in our model, they're verbal. So somebody's, what do you mean? Because they have all this information they want to gather, verbally or in the written format. So here's that big detailed information that I need to have before I buy that fridge. You know, there's 400 pages I got off the internet before I went there. But their gift is, Paul, is they see what's not there. So if there's 100 words in an essay, 99 right, 1 spelt wrong, which one are they going to look at?
Oh, man.
The one that's wrong. But what if I bring that orientation into my relationships and I only point out to you what you don't do right? So that can be a real conflict with cognitive analysis profiles, is because I only look at what's not there. So they need to manage it. Yes, you have the gift of noticing details others miss. But if you only point that out in the relationships, that could be tenuous, stressful, and burdensome for everybody.
So
we
you see
need
how
all of them.
this can cause workplace conflict.
Oh,
or,
absolutely.
Or marital conflict. Oh, huge.
For sure. The other thing is we teach people in the book on how to get the right job that fits your style. So if I'm in a position, even though I might have the experience and abilities to do a job, if the style does not match the nature of who I am, then there's not a compatibility, and I can't sustain my energy in it. So sometimes we are critical of ourselves. We feel guilty because we can't do certain things, when in fact, the nature of who I am is not on how I've been created and how I'm made. So, Paul, if I threw you in the back and now you're in charge of bookkeeping here at Miracle Channel, you're
Lord
in charge
help
of
us.
all, well, exactly, invoices wouldn't be paid. But what's your fulfillment going to be at the end of a month or 6 months? So sometimes we have to acknowledge the fact that I'm in the wrong place. And everybody was gifted with an assignment or a purpose. So this information gives you that intentionality, that power. And then the same thing with parenting kids. I have 2 completely different kids. So one of my sons, even at 14 years of age, we were coaching him where he was having conflict with his teacher. So he was very much like you and I, were outgoing. So what does education want? They want compliance. They want you to follow rules. He doesn't want to follow rules. His teacher was the opposite style than him. And so they were just butting heads, almost to where it was coming to blows with a grade 8 student. Well, hey, 14-year-old boy, testosterone, all these kinds of things going on. But we coached him, and one day, and the story's in the book, he came back and he said, "Dad, I've learned something." He said, "What is that, Tim?" He says, "I've learned how to shut up." And because he's starting to know that his personality was affecting the environment and that he needed to control that, and being outspoken was a great gift, but it was inappropriate at times. And so he needed to start managing that. We also coached the teacher. I was chair of the school board at that time, so I had a little influence to help that her desire to have him compliant was actually frustrating him even more and making it worse. So neither of them wanted that, but their behaviors were causing it.
Yeah, no, that is huge. When you talk about, again, using like a tool like this book here, Why Aren't You More Like Me? Even to manage workplace settings, what job am I suited for? I mean, you give the example in the book there, I think it was a call center, and 400% turnover rate, something like that. People wouldn't stay working there, and part of the problem was, I think it was a credit to, you're trying to, a collection agency sort of thing, right? And they were hiring nice people to, collect, right? You explain the story.
Well, the manager was well-intended. He said, a lot of times credit collection departments are seen as this sort of tactful, vengeful kind of group. So he wanted to hire nice, kind, considerate individuals. But what happened is these individuals don't like conflict. What's conflict when you're a credit collection? There was an automatic call center. And so they're having a 400% turnover because the internal system of these nice people was so frustrating for them and so negative towards their body that they were actually physically ill. And so they were quitting. And I said, I know you're well-intended, but let's teach other people who are better suited for this position to be kind, but trying to change me to not be physically bothered by this amount of conflict. I can't fight that. So we talk about sustainability in that way, is that it wasn't negative towards the person, it's just that the role did not fit them. And the manager was well-intended, but he didn't have this information when he was doing the hiring.
But so they literally changed that, and they did hire people who were actually designed for that personality style. and it changed everything, didn't it?
That went down to 40% turnover in just less than 6 months, from 400%. So in call centers, there's a turnover to start with.
Yeah.
But one other thing I want to point out to everybody is that 90% of the population are a blend or a combination of these 4 dimensions.
Yeah.
And other people try to characterize, okay, you are this one. No, the majority, 90%, are a combination. So we teach in the book what your pattern is, what your blend is.
Okay.
And that is what is the most important part for me, because we have 21 different patterns that we teach. And in the book is a free assessment included. So you go
Right,
online, there's a code there, and you can find out what your style is, and you can read through the in-depth report that says, what's your strengths? What are some challenges? How do you react to stress? How do you work on a team? What's the leadership implications? And to increase my effectiveness with people who are different than me. Because the other side is, not only do I know me, I've suspended who I am, but now I can get the knowledge of, what does Paul need from me so I can build relationship with him? And what does my significant other need so I can build
key.
relationship
See,
with him?
I love what you're saying here, because is there a way, I guess, that we can figure out, okay, what's my spouse's personality style like, or my son or my daughter, or my boss, who I keep on clashing with? I mean, what's with this, right? I mean, what kind of personality style is this person, or your coworker, whatever it is? Is there an easy way to do that?
Absolutely. In one of the chapters of the book, I give you a framework of our personal style model. Once you read the chapter, you should be able to, in 3 or 4 or 5 minutes, have an idea of what that personal style of that individual is. Maybe faster in some cases, slower in others, but we give you a framework that very quickly you can look and observe behaviors. People are constantly leaving us clues about how they want to be treated. We're just not paying attention, nor do we know what to do with it. So we give you a framework. We also give you the guidelines. Is okay, we call that style shifting. I'm not changing my preferences, but I am deferring to your needs before me, and say, okay, what do I need to shift and do? So I now know what you are, Paul. You're giving me clues. I say, I see that. I can figure that out just in a couple of minutes. We teach salespeople how to do this in just 1 or 2 minutes on the phone, because people are constantly leaving those clues. With those clues, then I say, okay, what does Paul need from me, so we build relationship? Because interesting enough, credibility lies in the other person's mind. Well, see, we never intend to offend other people,
Right.
but we are offending them and we don't even know it. So that's part
Exactly.
of that process.
Oh, you ever had that happen in marital relations? What on earth is she mad about? What did I do? Right? Happens all the time.
So I don't get it, but obviously I did something that was offending you.
Yeah.
One of the hardest things for us is not to take that personally.
Right.
So I did something, well, you don't accept me. And so that goes back to that suspending. It's still one of the most difficult things for me to do. We're all kind of in the flesh, where we use the Holy Spirit and all those things. How do I actually stay grounded in me? And says, you know what they're saying, I'm not going to take personally. What does she or he need from me right now? And so what can I give to them, rather than get locked into, okay, yeah, but I'm this way. And then we get this argument and it just goes downhill. And rather than just really suspending who I am.
Yeah, how do you actually, I think I get what you're saying. How do you suspend yourself like that, Again, your natural tendency would be to, okay, I'm going to react to this verbally and angrily. I'm going to set them in place because that's what needs to be done. Clarity, anybody could see that, right?
Yeah.
But you're saying, no, you put that on hold. How do you practically do that? You have to practice it, I guess, eh?
Well, you practice it. First of all, you have to be aware of what is it you're doing, what is it they need, and then you make a choice. These are choices. This is something that every single person watching this show can do. They can make a choice to style shift, but I have to make that choice. I'm not suggesting that it's easy, but once you do it, it's just like working a muscle. Once you start working out, if I've never run before, a couple of months from now, it's easier for me than it was the first day. So once I understand it, I remember doing a training program, and I have the story in the book as well, where I'm very extroverted and I could intimidate people if I don't turn it down. This other person was more introverted, and he came to me after doing a second day in the workshop when we had covered this stuff. He said, Ken, I need to apologize to you. And I said, why is that? He said, well, I really did think that you were a jerk. And I said, oh, okay, well, thank you. So I didn't take it personally.
Yes.
So I just went and said, why do you think that? I said, well, I realized that you came into the session with high levels of confidence and who you are, and I thought that was cocky. I thought that was arrogant. So there's a fine line between confidence and arrogance. And he said, I realized it was my predisposition of being introverted, and I judged you negatively, so I apologize for doing that.
Okay, that's actually a great story, isn't it? I mean, we'll talk more about this here. We need to take a break, but I want to open up the lines here for your calls on this as well. 1-888-816-2545. You can fire off some personality questions here for Ken Keis, and I'd love to hear from you. What are some of the conflicts you run into at work or at home, and how do you deal with them? Are they personality-based, and maybe they can actually be relatively easily fixed? So 1-888-816-2545. Don't be shy. Well, maybe you are shy. Or you can email us if you're shy. insight@miraclechannel.ca. All right. Talking about personality styles. We'll be back right after this. Let you know about a special concert coming up October the 15th. It's actually a local 75-voice choir that's going to be doing this. I love hearing big choirs, but they've also got a small group, and these guys are superb. They're called Tenor, 3 great male tenors, okay? 3 tenors singing together. And this is happening again Monday, October the 15th, 7 o'clock start. This will be at the Evangelical Free Church, and tickets are $10. You can get those at Dove Christian Supplies downtown. If you want some more details on the group, Tenor and so forth, it's 315-2822, 315-2822, or you can go online as well at trinityurc.org, trinityurc.org. So once again, Monday, October 15th, 7 o'clock, E-Free Church, great choir and a superb male trio coming up there. And that's today's Local Life.
Community leaders, pastors, event organizers, missionaries. We want to know about your inspiring story or event happening in Southern Alberta. Call the Insight team at 403-380-3399 or email insight@miraclechannel.ca. Local Life is your connection to Southern Alberta.
All right, we're talking about personality styles. Our guest, Ken Keis. And again, the name of the book and the name of the website as well, Why Aren't You More Like Me? And you can get your copy at whyaren'tyoumorelikeme.com. And it's an excellent tool to discover what your personality is like, and maybe what your spouse's or your coworker's personality is like, and actually a very, very helpful tool. We went through a similar kind of a personality test here at work a number of years ago, and actually it was very, very helpful. I mean, just to you go like, oh, that's why she's like that. Oh, okay, I get it now. So you start to adjust how you respond to their, behaviors, and you start to change your own behaviors. Very, very helpful to reducing clashes, whether it's in the workplace or at home. So again, our line's open right now, 1-888-816-2545. Love to have you join the conversation here today with your stories of personality conflicts. I'm sure there's some doozies out there, and did you actually get to fix some of those? Maybe you're going through one right now and you need some help. Why is this person doing this? And maybe we can get some help for you that way. You can also email us, insight@miraclechannel.ca. Ken, I guess what would some of the typical workplace clashes be? I mean, you got, again, your strong personality, trying to behavioral action, I guess it would be, the Donald Trumps of the world, right? And then you've got the, just kind of don't like change, don't like conflict. That person who's just steady Eddie, right? I mean, I'm thinking that's ripe for some conflict, isn't it?
Well, interesting. The conflict will be unique to each area. Sometimes it's even the obvious. That makes sense to what you talked about there. But you can also have in the workplace, because we do a lot of work with organizations and companies in helping in succession planning and promoting people. But a lot of times people have been promoted into incompetence, or they have a certain personal style. They're now the supervisor, and they don't like conflict. So their conflict is the sin of omission. So there's this conflict piece. Somebody is acting out against the policies or being disruptive with the group, and then they aren't dealing with it. So other people are observing them, and so your credibility as a supervisor is going down because you're not dealing with the issues over there. So you think it's this sort of intensity part, but it could be other things, because these interpersonal harmony individuals can also be saboteurs. And because they're very nice and kind, because they don't share their feelings, they become bitter. So the other side is they can be bitter and angry. And so this unforgiveness, this direct Donald Trump forgets about you the minute he walks out of the door. He's moved on to something else.
Yes.
But there's other personal styles like the cognitive analysis, which take the past and bring it into the future. And so there's this lack of forgiveness, or, 7 years ago when you did that, Paul?
Yeah,
he doesn't
remember anything about it.
And they bring that forward versus letting it go. So each style has their own independent piece. So one of the things, let's say affective expressive personality, they sometimes can have difficulty with time and time management. And they overpromise.
It never happens to me.
Yeah, of course. And they overpromise and they underdeliver. They say, what, Ken, we're going to get that project done, 4 o'clock Tuesday, it's going to be done. And everything has to line up, every light in town has to be perfect for them to deliver it. Now, they're not meaning to misrepresent, but they're not realizing that they're so optimistic that they're setting themselves up to fail, and they erode their credibility because they don't show up and on time the way that they committed. The other thing is, like a cognitive analysis person, you're going to have dinner with them or a meeting at 3. Then the A person comes at 3:05. Or the affective expressive.
Yeah.
They don't think it's any big deal.
Yeah.
But because you're late, you've disrespected their time.
Gotcha.
And so now all of a sudden you think this is not a conflict, but you are eroding your credibility and trust in the workplace by these simple things. Or the other one where the interpersonal harmony person's in a meeting. And I say, Paul, what do you think about this issue in the team? So, it's fine. They get out of the group, they pull you aside. I don't even like it at all. Yeah, but Paul, I asked you in the meeting what your concerns were. They're not willing to share as easily within a group setting because of their style.
They want to avoid the conflict.
They want to avoid the conflict, and because I'm going to say something about somebody else that might not be complimentary, I need to do it privately with you. So the assumption that they have voiced everything that's important to them within the group with that style, might not be true. So all of these are interfacing within, so that's why getting an assessment done, understanding it, we get people to read others. There's another way you can do it, Paul, where I can fill it out on you and get feedback that says, here's how I see you and how you show up. We have, one of our couples does a lot of work in marriage counseling and marriage restoration. They will not do their counseling unless they do this book. Or they do this
Well, the funny thing is, I would think about myself, this is my personality. I know me, right? But the people you work with may see you differently. Now, that's interesting. And I think that would be a real eye-opener.
It's very powerful. Now, here's the interesting thing. Everybody already has an opinion about you. You just don't know what it is. So what this does is that, so we're not creating truth here. We're not creating the results. We're only revealing what is already true in the relationships, but not voiced or given a methodology or a model or language to communicate to one another. Remember, the other thing about the marriage seminar I just wanted to mention is that here's the power of it. When we have conflict, a lot of times I direct that energy towards you, Paul.
Right.
When I move into an assessment like is in the book or the personal style indicator, I redirect that into the tool and I remove it and say, you know what, Paul wasn't really trying to offend me. Paul was being that way. So it allows this opening to be able to redirect that energy into this piece of paper or online so that then we can open dialogue and get forward with it.
Oh yeah, much more objective perspective on it, the big picture, and I think very, very helpful for dealing with conflict.
Absolutely.
So, all right, whyaren'tyoumorelikeme.com. Check it out. Let's take some phone calls and emails. Virginia from Newfoundland, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Yes, hi. I've been watching your program, and it's very interesting because lately I've really been dealing with offenses. The Lord has really been showing me I need to change some things in my life, and especially about offenses. I've found some really good scriptures. Ecclesiastes 10:4 says in the Amplified, if the temper of the ruler rises up against you, do not leave your place or show a resisting spirit. For gentleness and calmness prevent or put a stop to great offenses.
Yes.
Yes.
One more scripture that was really good. Proverbs 19:11. Good sense makes a man restrain his anger, and it is his glory to overlook a transgression or an offense. I looked up a lot of scriptures on offense, and it's really been helpful to me. And lately, there's been so many programs. I know it seems like God is trying to tell me something, and and He is.
No, those are great scriptures, Virginia. Absolutely, they tie in directly with what you're talking about here.
Well, we want to be, and I appreciate that, Virginia. Your comments there is that all of us get hooked on different things. So that root word, if you actually go into the root word, it's actually bait. we have been baited into. So nobody can offend us unless we allow them. And there's lots of literature that talks about that. So we have that, and I appreciate your comment. So the encouragement there is, it doesn't mean that I approve behavior. It doesn't mean that I like what you do. The key is not to get offended. Even you see this even in grocery stores where a 4 and a 5-year-old can take out an adult in the grocery stores. Okay, now they're offended, they're mad and angry, and they say things to the 4-year-old they never would say.
Yeah.
So I appreciate, Virginia, that where we just need to kind of give it to the Spirit, but also be aware of, okay, what is it that's going on that's causing me to be hooked? And again, I just want to mention, it doesn't mean that you accept or like the behavior, but I don't have to let it bother me in that same sort of angry or upset or temper kind of way.
Yeah, you're all recognizing the personality style of the other person and your own personality style. How am I responding to this, so forth. So, excellent stuff. Darcy emails, my personality is very laid back. My job requires me to go outside my comfort zone. I hate when that happens. I don't necessarily like how different I have to be for my job. How can I be more myself in my workplace? Yeah, Darcy, thanks for that. Boy, that is so true.
Well, I mean, it's interesting, the last research, because I do all the work on purpose, right, is that 80% of people dislike what they do from mildly irritated to loathe. So Darcy, here's my encouragement. And I was actually just in a company before the show just talking about this. How can we have the right people in the right job doing the right things at the right time? And so when you fill out one of these, you can start saying, what part of the job can I really play to my strengths? And maybe there's some adjustments I need to consider. So I know we need to work, we need to live, and those things are there, but God really wants you to play to your strengths. So there is a perfect assignment for you. So part of that intentionality says, what is the perfect style job? See, personal style doesn't measure gifts, talents, and abilities. So you and I, Paul, could have the same style pattern like Darcy, but one wanting to be a firefighter, one wanting to be a host. That's possible.
Okay.
So all we want you to do is, what's the nature of the work and what does the job need? So I can be intentional that the work that I am doing fits me, so I have that compatibility and that sustainability. So part of that, Darcy, is being aware of yourself and what those strengths are, and then communicating that to your employer. If you're a great person, maybe they can adjust some of those things for you, or it might mean just adjusting to a new position that really plays to who you are.
All right, thanks for that, Darcy. And again, you can check out the book online. Might be helpful for you as well. whyaren'tyoumorelikeme.com. You can also give us a call. I'd love to have some more input from you. 1-888-816-2545, anywhere in Canada or beyond that. And just the personality types that you encounter at work or at home. All right, how do you deal with them? Amelia is on the line from Alberta. Hi, Amelia. Go ahead.
Okay. I like to know if I do a mistake to push my daughter to love God more and forgive everybody because she fight with me.
Okay.
Because I'm so nervous, you know.
That's okay.
I'm so nervous. And I want her to love all the world. But she tell me I cannot change the world. I said, I know that, but at least I can do a little bit.
So would you say, Amelia, that you have a different personality style than your daughter then?
Yes.
Yeah.
She's a good girl, okay? She loves me so much to that she even today told me this. But it's a long story.
Yeah. Well, let's see if we can get you some advice here. Ken?
Well, and I appreciate you calling in because there's a lot of emotions that get attached to this. And, personality sometimes can be fun and cute, but that's not where we come from. This is important information as you're talking about your daughter. One of the things, and God talks about this too, is to love her where she's at. The other one, even beyond the book and beyond what we're teaching here, is that the best place is to pray for them and accept them. Acceptance and unconditional acceptance of them, as He has done for us, is one of the greatest ways to be able to connect with them. And so rather than trying to change people, the last thing we want to do is to change others, because that's not our job. Our job is to accept and love others. And our personality is sometimes trying to impose on those. So rather than taking it personally as a rejection, is that we just love them where we are, and we trust that God's going to be able to bring that person back to us. And that's my experience in doing that, Paul, and yourself. And I appreciate you, the emotions behind it, because that's so important. And I'm sure there's other people watching where understanding yourself, not blaming yourself, not getting guilty, just staying in your zone about how God's created you, accepting your daughter, and just moving forward with love in that acceptance.
Yeah. You know, Amelia, I do appreciate the phone call because I can hear the, I guess the urgency in that, how you love your daughter very much, and as you express, she loves you very, very much. The funny thing is, what we have a tendency to try to change the other person, and as we described earlier, some of your conflicts in college, and I had very similar things as a young man. I tried to get people to like me and so forth. Actually, had the opposite effect, and it is the upside down kingdom. We have when we use God's approach and to actually accept the person where they're at, and not try to change them, and say, Lord, change me, help me respond differently to my daughter or my son when they behave in a way that I don't think is right, and then I'm going to pray for that person. And you know what? Over time, we're going to see actually God, I think, begin to change us and them. Whether if we just try to change them, nothing's going to change. We're not going to get anywhere. So,
Exactly.
so I think, you said it very, very well there. So, all right, best to you with that, Amelia. 1-888-816-2545. Love to hear from you again anywhere in Canada on personality styles and the conflicts we see here. Helena's emailed, I've just gotten married and I have realized that there are a lot of things that my husband does that I can't stand. He does not listen to me when I ask him a question. How can we deal with these problems without it blowing up into a fight? Thanks so much for that, Helena. Boy, that is a typical marriage question right there, and I know you've got some some stuff in the book. There's some stories in the book that deal with that very directly.
Transformational, right?
Yeah.
So, and thank you for that question. And hey, we've dealt with it in our own marriage, even as part of it. In a lot of cases, we marry opposites. Not always, but in a lot of cases, because we're attracted to, they have what we don't have. So if a spouse or significant other has a detailed orientation and they're attending the details, and then, of course, that becomes oppressive because we're trying to change them. So acceptance, again, is one of the number of pieces. However, what you can do is get involved with the personal style indicator in the book and start having a dialogue, because we also want to be aware of the behavior that is offensive to our significant other or our partner, and how can we be awake to it. So rather than judging or blaming, as soon as you say, you did this, forget it. There's not going to be any change whatsoever. It said, I felt this way. So we could have a whole seminar over marriage and communication skills. So if I'm trying to change them, and there are things that you dislike, so what is it? So the other side is from our own personal work. What is it about them that they're doing I'm getting hooked on? So because we allow ourselves to get hooked. Now I hear you where you want somebody else to listen to you. Well, then that's where you can get into the book, start understanding, and in a non-confrontational setting, meaning when you have lots of space, sit down and talk. You say, you know what, Paul, when you're doing this, I don't feel listened to. So at the moment, if you're heated, then it's not going to work.
No.
So I have to go offline when there's no stress and start talking about the issues, and not judge, but simply talk about the issues and the behaviors, not the person.
Right. So often, with a typical marriage setting, with the guy, how was work? Fine. Right, we tend to be more non-verbal, right?
Yes.
So, and again, any advice you'd have there for the poor ladies going, I'm so frustrated with my husband. I mean, what should they recognize here?
Well, part of that is that we have to be open to that as men. That's the reality of that side is too. Now, not everybody's willing, but if you look at all the research, if I can be what they need, then they will come to my side. I mean, none of us want to change. We want my way, and I'm going to be entrenched, and I'm going to stay here. But oddly enough, if I actually love that person where they're at, I could probably get more back from them. But I also need to let them know, because the assumption is that they know what's in your head. They don't. If I don't talk about it, if I don't communicate it in a respectful manner, then I can't hear it. So that's one of the basic pieces or clips that you can start with.
Right, and again, this comes back to the suspending as well, as you were talking about. My personality style is, not to talk when I come home. Oddly enough, as a talk show host, I don't talk that much at home. It's too much like work, right? So I've got to be able to suspend that. I guess when I come home and say, oh, you know what? No, I do need to talk about the day. I need to make an effort that way, and likewise, my wife needs to, make some sacrifices as well, back and forth that way, right?
Absolutely,
So-
absolutely. And one of the other things there is that, again, I just want to emphasize is we can't try to put changing our significant other on the agenda. We want to, is that how do I accept that and how do I love them? And oddly enough, all the research shows that as I love that partner more and accept them more, their ability to serve me and my background increases.
Right.
And so the other one is that you can never, regardless of personal style, you cannot replace connection, meaning you have to spend time together. If you're a part,
Right,
so if you don't set
Yeah.
time, a date night, a communication time, 5 minutes at the end of the day, whenever both parties agree, then there's no style that's going to be able to be successful. You need to have that connecting time somewhere built into it, right?
Okay, there you go. This is even a marriage book as well. Okay, seriously.
Absolutely.
I'm not making that up. Why aren't you more like me? .com is where you can get your copy of this book here as well. Very, very helpful tool. All right, let's take an email here. Jillian says it's possible to change our personality traits that we don't like within ourselves, or is it possible? Pardon me. I tend to talk over others and I can't seem to stop. Thank you for that, Jillian. Yes, I can relate. I'm verbose at times, and I talk when I should be letting the guest talk. You know how many times that's happened over the 13 years we've been doing this show. Producer says, "Paul, shut up. Let the guest talk." That's happened on more than one occasion. So I'll let you talk now,
Oh,
Ken.
really? Really? Did you want to continue, Paul?
No, I'll shut up now.
Okay. Well, part of it is, first of all, we teach that personality is totality of who you are. Your personal style does not change. However, you have choices on your behaviors at all times. So we manage our style. So our style is in control of us, or we're in control of our style. So it is possible for you to manage it. You're not changing your preferences in the dynamics of who you are, but what you are doing is changing how you're engaging it. So I'm being intentional. I can be like Paul. I can go in a meeting and I can be quiet, or as you said, shut up, and make the choice to do it. Now, everything in my system doesn't want to do it, but you can manage that. So your style does not give you an excuse for your behavior. So that piece, when you think about, yes, can you shift it? You're not changing who you are, but you are developing yourself. You're maturing yourself. You use the Spirit to help manage yourself. All these things as we grow and mature so that you can be more intentional. And the other one is to be awake. Hello, my behavior right now is being offensive to others, and I don't even know it. So can I be conscious of that to start with? And then we talked about earlier, what are the behaviors that this group or other people need from me right now so that I can build credibility with them? Because it lies in their mind, not mine. And so I can be intentional with it once I understand the framework. And by the way, the book, it's easy. It's in a conversational tone. It's not complicated, though most people try to make it that way. It's a simple process to be able to understand that.
You just talked about credibility. You actually have a chapter on credibility there as well. I think it's called Don't Leave Home or Don't Leave Work Without It, right? So
Yes.
You want to define credibility?
Well,
for us?
credibility is based on traits, and it's your reputation for all these
Right.
characteristics, for
Right.
being trusting, for being honest. And so I need to know you. So those of you that are watching a show that have never met me before, I'm developing credibility based on what I do and what I don't do right here on the show. And you would have credibility in the marketplace. All of us have a level of credibility with everybody that we know if we want it or not. It's the price you pay for showing up. It's either high, medium, or low. The key is, do you know what it is? And so can I be aware of that my behaviors are either increasing, keeping the same, or lowering my credibility with other people? And can I be conscious to say and be awake, right now what I'm doing is not appropriate? So that whole area, and credibility, it's foundational for trust. It's foundational for willingness for people to work for you. It's foundational for leadership. If parents and their kids don't have credibility, their willingness to listen to what the parent wants is going to erode from a leadership, from a significant other, from a friend's point of view, from a family, no matter what you do. And every organization has a level of credibility as well.
It's absolutely key. Yeah, Proverbs 27:21 says, the refining pot is for silver and the furnace for gold. A man is valued by what others say of him. Isn't it?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Reputation, credibility.
And the other one, as I mentioned too, the sin of omission. You were talking about marriages, and there's a short story in the book, so just a quick one. Brenda and I just got married, and we're both 30s. In our 30s, we got married. She was teaching at college. We had a townhouse with the window looking into the carport. It's 9 o'clock at night. I'm sitting at the table, 3 months married. Hey, we're fine. We're happy. Everything's good. She gets out of the car from teaching college. Her arms are full of books, gets to the door, opens up, and she's mad with me. And I said, well, why is that? Because I didn't get up and open the door. And so I eroded my credibility with Brenda at that time because I didn't actually get up and open the door. Now, the other side of it is that she thought that I should know to open the door, which actually caused some upsetness or anger, so then that anger would get me defensive. So both of us, we had to suspend and learn. And by the way, I do open doors now. Everybody watching, I do open it. I am trained. I've been able to do it. So you're paying attention and saying, okay, I didn't mean to. Did I wake up that morning and say, you know what? I'm going to see if I can offend Brenda.
Exactly.
So the majority of you are not trying to offend others, but we're not conscious or self-aware that we are. So get the information so that you can be and you can build relationships and not have it go down pathways where bitterness builds or credibility is eroded or all these different negative possibilities. Let's go to the positive.
Well, very well said. Okay, let's take a phone call here as well. Lisa's on the line. Hi, Lisa.
Hi, thanks for taking my call, gentlemen. Okay, so maybe this is a bit of an esoteric question, and I hope it sort of makes sense. But, you know, as we're taught as children not to judge a book by its cover. And so sometimes you know how people, their physical appearance can be completely different than what their personality type is.
Yeah, right, sure.
Okay, so for example, I had a lady here from my church, and we had like a play date with our children, and we were talking about, you know, just general things in high school and such, and where we grew up. And she said to me, she said, well, I could see you sort of being as a cheerleader type, or dating the captain of the football team, which is completely opposite of what I was like. I mean, in school, I was like with braces and a book nerd, and I was bullied and could never get the tangles out of my hair. And I'm thinking to myself, what is it about my physical appearance that is so completely different than what I'm actually like? And what I'd like to know is, and this is my question, is how can I sort of give the presentation of more of my personality type of what I truly am than how people are seeing me? I don't know. Does that make sense?
So you're saying that people see you differently than you feel you really are. So is there a way you can present yourself so people would actually receive who you really are? That's interesting. Okay, I don't know. You know, who we feel we really are authentic this way. How come other people aren't seeing it? Is there a way we can adjust that?
Well, it goes to that all the time. We're leaving. At least we're leaving impressions on people.
Yeah.
So part of that is the investigation. Now, the other side that I want to kind of defend you in this is that nobody can tell you who you are as far as what's important to you, what your personal style is. So the only person that could validate this information is yourself. So keep that in mind. And I just want to link, and I'll come to the back end here, Lisa, to it, is that a lot of times people prejudge, you should be a cheerleader, as you mentioned. Well, personal style does not determine career paths. It does not determine gifts, talents, and abilities. Those are separate measures. It tells you how you want to go about doing work, how you want to go about doing certain things. So people don't know necessarily what your gifts and talents are unless they get to know you. So talk to them. Say, you can ask the question, just be open. Say, what is it about me that leads you to think that I should be a cheerleader? And also our society is always trying to compartmentalize as well. So their judgments and biases are coming, so we don't necessarily have to accept it. I said, thank you for sharing, Paul, but that's not where I'm at.
Yeah, it's interesting though, but asking why, and then maybe you'll discover a pattern. Perhaps there's some behavior that needs to change, I don't know, or be adjusted. So, yeah, okay. Interesting question. Thanks for that, Lisa. Megan is on the line. Hi, Megan. Megan from Ontario, go ahead.
Oh, yes. My question is, I have a fiance, and he seems to keep holding the past against me from things that I've done to him, including being bitter and resentful and angry towards me for my past actions. And I'm having a really hard time getting over the fact that he keeps making me feel guilty for it.
Okay. Is that personality style related then? Yeah, I don't know. Ken?
Well, it could be a little bit of both. In our holistic model we teach, we also talk about emotional anchors because we are more than just personal style. So personality includes biophysical self-worth, environmental systems, social teachers and values, and our spirituality. So there could be a couple of things that are playing in this, Megan, and that is emotional anchors come into play, personality where they want to hold the past against you. See, nobody makes you feel guilty unless you let them. So my encouragement to you is to be able to let that go as far as part of that process. And they want to hold it against you so that you hurt as much as they do. Now, I'm just guessing at this as far as the outside is, so it's their issue, not yours. So yes, that's happened. It's occurred. Maybe there's some things you'd like to change, but even biblically, we're not to continue that guilt. We're really to release it to Him.
So should she confront it, again, when they're not emotional?
You can, but you can also don't own it. So the key is don't own that. You can confront it, you can push it back, but in the end, that's their reality, and we can't own it. I know I've been through this.
Okay.
I understand it. So sometimes you can't change what they are. I can only own my behavior. So your response to it is part of that. Hopefully that's been helpful for you.
You bet. Thank you for that, Megan. All right, we're running out of time here, but real briefly, I wonder if you can tie this in with it, because it does, you talk about living on purpose, and it ties in very much with this, right?
Well, all of us have been gifted with talents and abilities and personal style, and we all have assignment. I mean, I absolutely believe that you're not created by accident.
Right.
And so sometimes people say they want to be negative towards their own style and their personality. I wish I could be like this other person. We started the show with that. The reality is you have the perfect style for you. Otherwise, what we're saying is that you were created and you're an accident, and so we got to fix you. Well, that's not true. Now, we need to develop, we need to mature, we need to develop skills, qualities, all these other factors that are part of it. That's fine. But my encouragement is that purpose this is one piece of it, but we have all these other pieces of that holistic model. So my style might be a missionary, it might be somebody who's doing a speaker. Mine is a speaker and a trainer, and really educating and encouraging others to realize their potential.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Ken, it's been a blessing to have you on the program.
Well,
it's very
it's
interesting.
been awesome to be here, Paul.
Okay. Great stuff. This can be very, very helpful for your workplace or for your marriage, for that matter. Why aren't you more like me.com? You can get your copy there and do the whole assessment there, and I think it'll be very helpful for you. Okay, on tomorrow's program, look forward to your response to this. Richard Fangrad joins us from Creation Ministries International. So your questions on creation and evolution, is the Bible scientific? Your kids probably have lots of questions about it, so we'll have a lot of info for you tomorrow.